What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is The Punisher Season 1, Episode 9, Front Towards Enemy. So, pretty much Lewis becomes the main focus of this episode. We really do pump the brakes pretty hard on the entire story surrounding, Frank and Russo and Agent Orange. All of that stuff pretty much put on hold. For how long, I have no idea, but we start off this episode with Lewis blowing up someplace, and he pretty much takes the main focus. And while I'm not disliking it, I still feel like it's just filler. It's time spent trying to waste a couple episodes so we can stretch it out into 13 episodes, instead of just, lengthening the story a little bit, maybe spending time somewhere else. No, we've got to pause the story and focus on this kind of side story for a second. It almost makes me think of, like, if you're playing, like, Skyrim or one of those RPG, like, games where there's a main story and then a lot of side stories. Lewis feels like a side story that you're just like, oh, this seems like it could be interesting, and head off that way. And while it is interesting, it does kind of distract from the main plot. Now, it does have a couple ramifications. First of all, there is a really, really good scene at the end, because Curtis ends up finding Lewis inside of, I think the guy's name was O'Connor, the old guy that Lewis killed. He finds him inside of that place, and then Lewis beats him in a fight and then straps a claymore to his chest. And Frank, of course, tracks him down, finds that. And there is a really, really good moment between Frank, Curtis, and Lewis. And it's one of those scenes where I'm just like, okay, that scene made me not mind as much that we took a break. And on top of that, it does lead to what we see at the end of this episode, where Frank is now revealed to still be alive to the public. So there are certain ramifications that happen because of this little side story, if you want to call it that. But I just wish it wasn't so much like a hard pump on the brakes for the main story. If this were something where it feels like it still sort of ties into what's going on and ties into the main story overall, it would be great. But instead, it has nothing to do with Agent Orange or Billy Russo. Yes, Lewis did I think he got turned down by Russo, I believe. It still does connect to Frank, because obviously he cares about Karen, and Lewis is targeting Karen. So it still does connect to Frank as, the Punisher. But it just really, really feels like it's all right, we're heading this way with the main plot. Stop. Okay, let's take a little side street really quick. So that's my only real problem with it. Aside from that, the rest of this episode was really enjoyable. Honestly, this is something that just sort of stood out to me, and it has nothing to do with the episode in general. But the very first shot of Madani lying on her bed, and then, like, the sun coming in through the window, they do the big flare, and then all of a sudden the side of her bed turns into a wall as her mom comes in through the front door. That transition was just so smooth. I was thoroughly impressed. I don't know why the side of the bed, the covers, look like the wall, but it was still so smooth and so clever of a transition. I was blown away by it. I'm like, holy crap, that was clean as hell. Nothing to do with the episode, just something that stood out to me. I'm not really even an editor type person, and normally I don't notice editing stuff as much, but that one just stood out to me. I was like, damn, that was nice. But yeah, we see Madani going through her little phase in this episode. She's dealing with the death of Sam. I feel like, once again, she says that she has this gut instinct about people, and Russo is just throwing up red flags all over the place. Did she give him all of the details? Like, whenever she came back, she's like, yeah, Sam got stabbed, and he had a gun in the fight, and somehow the guy beat him, in the fight with a knife, even though Sam had a gun. Did she explain all of that to him? Because later in this episode, he's like, why don't you, if you're blaming yourself, why not blame the villain in the story? Or why not blame Sam? How did he lose when he had a gun and the other guy had a knife? I'm just like, did you tell him all of that? Because she must have, if she did not react at all. But I don't know. Like, I just feel like he's throwing up all these red flags. Yes, he can be charming. His good looks probably have something to do with it. But, I mean, my goodness, you want to make her like the strong, awesome character, which she has been for the most part. But then you still want her to go gaga over the bad guy to the point where she cannot see that he is clearly throwing up some red flags and throwing up some suspicious statements. I don't know. Oh, my instinct is great unless it comes to somebody who looks good. Then I just have no idea. It's just, I don't know, it's a minor thing, and it's something that feminists would probably harp on over, me. But it just doesn't really fit with her character, in my opinion, and that's why it's so frustrating. But that's pretty much most of what happens with Madani at the end. Micro tracks her down and finds her in a bar, and then they discuss some of the stuff with Frank. He goes without Frank knowing, so I'm wondering how Frank's going to react when he finds out about that. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all of what happens this episode. Everything with Curtis and the Claymore and Lewis, all that stuff was really well handled. It was pretty intense, because for a second I was like, is Curtis going to make it to the end of this? And that's not something that I felt so far this season. It's, like I said, this season so far has been pretty predictable. In that moment, for a second, I felt like maybe it's not going to be as predictable as I thought. I did assume at some point Frank's identity was going to be revealed to the public again. I did assume at some point Micro was going to track down Madani and talk to her by himself, because he really wants to. And, I assumed Karen was going to have a bigger part, so here's her bigger part. Lewis targets her specifically, and that's the role she has to play in this season, which I don't mind. I do like Karen as a character. She is a good character to have in your series, so bringing her on, as having a little bit more of a role to play for, I don't know, maybe only for like 3 episodes, but I do feel like it's a good move for this series right now. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen next, but that's all for this one, so I'll see you guys in the next episode in a second. And now episode 10, Virtue of the Vicious, and I gotta say, after quite a few episodes where Frank does nothing, it was so good to see him back in action in this one. God, whenever the action in the show gets going, it's so good. It feels real, it feels brutal, it's not some cheesy, like... that's one of the great things about, I think, the Marvel Netflix universe, is how realistic the fights feel, and how they don't like play it up, it's not some like grandiose thing like you'll see in the movies. It really does feel like it's a real thing, and it feels grounded in reality. And while some people may look at it and say, oh my gosh, it's so bloody, it's so violent, in my opinion, I mean, that's how it would be. I mean, that's how life is. So I don't know. I really enjoy whenever the action in the show gets going, because it's really good. But yeah, I mean, overall, this episode, it was a good one. It was set up in that style of they have different people telling different parts of the story, and it all links up and connects at the end. And I don't know, I do enjoy episodes like that, so it was pretty fun. But overall, I mean, as far as some of the highlights of this episode, I think my favorite parts, first of all, I love the fact that the senator told that just terrible story. Because it starts off like that, it starts off with Lewis walking in and shooting the guards, and Karen's hiding, and he gets a few shots off at the senator pops some shots back at him, and then when Lewis goes to grab Karen, then the senator runs out and Frank shoots at him, and I'm just like, wait a minute, they're working together? When did that happen? And then it like cuts to Karen laughing, and she's like, of course he would say that. And I'm like, oh, that was his story. Okay, so what really happened? But yeah, I don't know. It is, once again, it's one of those scenes that does waste some time. It draws out the episode a little bit longer, but in this case it was done for laughs, and it did make me laugh. Because for a second it really did feel like it was part of the story. I'm like, wait, did we skip something? When did Lewis and Frank start working together? But aside from that, everybody else, Karen's there telling the story, Madani's there telling the story, so we're getting different parts of the story from both of them, and it just all connects at the end. Lewis taking Karen hostage, and then down to the bottom, Frank chasing them down to the bottom, and Madani stops him along the way. Madani finally finds out that Billy was involved with the whole thing, which, my goodness, how long did it have to take you? Like, even whenever she found out, oh, the guys that were killed at the scene all worked for Anvil, Billy's company. Wait a minute, what? Even then, she still goes to him. She's like, do you know who the 5th guy could be? I'm just like, woman, come on. You found a bug in your office. Who else do you think could have put it there? Like, it just... The fact that it took her so long to finally connect the dots. It took Billy literally shooting Frank in the ear for her to be like, oh, wait a minute. Billy had something to do with this. So yeah, she finally figures out about that. Frank, I think, figures out as well that Billy was involved. the fact that he shot Frank and shot his ear when he was completely, just not doing anything to him. I'm kind of curious. I don't know if Billy meant to miss him. It feels like if he wanted to shoot him in the head and kill him, he should have been able to. So I'm curious to find out, did he miss him on purpose? Or did he just happen to have a bad shot because he couldn't find the strength to pull the trigger and finish the job? So yeah, that's something to look at later on. But, all of their stories end up kind of converging in this one episode. And it's the end of Lewis's story as well, which, it's kind of a thank goodness moment for me because I feel like this story was drawing a bit of attention away from the main story. I'm glad it did all connect to what was going on with Billy and Madani and the senator. It does sort of further the plot forward now because aside from just, Frank being revealed to still be alive in the last episode, we also do get a little bit of further development between Billy and Madani, which does contribute to the overall plot. So I do feel like there was a point to this story now. It wasn't just a random side quest. It did contribute. Thank goodness, and I'm glad that we're just kind of done with it now. It stayed for a few episodes, and now it's done. I don't know, it was a little strange to see Lewis go out in that way, deciding to end his own life. Don't really know why he decided that. I guess Frank got through to him, and he's just like, better to take my life here than to continue what I'm doing and shame my father and shame my family, I guess. It was really kind of confusing. I'm still not entirely sure what the thought process was there, but ultimately, he blows himself up in a cooler, and that's the end of that story. Frank manages to get away. We see what's his name? It was I'm pretty sure he's the cop that's like friends with Foggy and Matt that we saw in like the first season of Daredevil, because I feel like that's him. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like that's who that is. But he's the cop that's questioning everyone, and so we kind of see that he knows Frank, he knows who he is, and he knows the type of person he is, and yet he's still kind of going down the path of, oh, we can't trust him. Oh, he was working with Lewis. Oh, he's the terrorist. And Madani and Karen are both just like, really? Do you really think this? I mean, I don't know. I'm wondering if he's going to kind of be a little bit of a thorn in Frank's side for the rest of the season, or if he just showed up for this one episode and now he's done. But yeah, we do see that he is the one looking for Frank, so that's something else to check out. I'm trying to think. There's not much else that I can talk about in this episode that really stood out to me. The main thing was just getting to see some of these action scenes again. It's really, really good. I will say, Anvil's security is pretty bad. If all it takes is some guy dressed up in their stuff, not on the papers at all. They're supposed to be this well-trained group that has all of this stuff sorted out. And so some guy walks up and is like, hey, how you doing? Yeah, I'm coming to relieve you. No reaction at all. They're just like, and then he pulls out a gun and shoots him in the head. I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah, that's all it took to trick you. You didn't even react. You didn't even say, hey. You didn't turn to him and say, what are you doing here? No, you just stood there and went, oh, and now he's got a gun, and now I'm dead. It's like, what are you doing? But yeah, the action scenes, like I said, were really the highlight of this one. The fact that Frank used a bulletproof vest, pretty much, first off, he uses it to protect the senator and Karen when Lewis is in the room about to shoot them, and then whenever the Anvil agents turn on him and try to kill him, he uses it to protect himself and then rolls and grabs a dead body and uses that to shield himself until he gets down to the end of the hallway. Some of this stuff, obviously, I nearly said Frank is a tank, and I realized how cheesy that would sound, so I'm going to avoid saying that. But that is one of the things about Frank as a character, is he can take some punishment. That it's like whenever he gets hurt, it's almost like his power level grows. I don't know why, I can't explain it, but it's one of the things that makes him such an awesome character to watch whenever action is going on, because it's like when it seems like, oh, these three people have their guns pointed at him, he's done. Then all of a sudden, like, they shoot him in the back, he rolls over a dead body, uses that as a shield, gets down to the end of the hallway, and then he's in a stairwell with cops. Well, he shoves the cops out of the way, grabs a fire hose, and jumps down to the bottom of the stairwell away from all the bullets and manages to make it out okay. I'm just like, this is the type of stuff that I just love seeing out of this character. I love seeing the quick improv of his action skills. You know, he's in a tight spot. It looks like he's down and out of luck. He finds some way out of it because he's very, very clever at using his environment to get himself out of a tight spot. And it's what makes his character so much fun to watch whenever the action scenes get going. So I'm a little concerned because there are 3 episodes left. I'm a little concerned that they're going to do kind of what they did after the last big action scene, you know, whenever they were doing the... When was that? I don't even remember now. I can't even remember when the last big action scene was. The last one I can think of is the one that got Sam killed. And even then, Frank wasn't even involved in that one. So I'm kind of just sitting here thinking, you know, well, the last one I can remember is whenever he took down that one guy who had the dominatrix. So it took 2 episodes for him to get to this again. Does this mean that now we're going to take another 2-episode break from the action for Frank again, and then the last episode is going to be all action? I don't know. But I really am curious to see where the rest of the season is going. You know, is it going to end in a courtroom where Frank is telling the truth about everything that happened with Rollins and everything that happened with Kandahar? Is it going to be just a mission where Frank takes him down all by himself? Because I don't know. It feels like it could go either way. It feels like the human side of Frank, everybody's pleading to that and saying, hey, take him to court, testify about what you know, let's take him down the right way. But then everything I know about the Punisher character says, no, he's just going to take him down his own way because that's who he is. So I really don't know where it's going, but that's about it for this episode, so I'm looking forward to see where it's going to go next. I'll see you guys in the next episode in just a second. And finally, for these 3 episodes, episode 11, Danger Close. And man, it's getting so good. I was so concerned. Like I said at the end of the last one, I was so concerned that they were going to do like the big action scene that they had at the hotel, and then it was going to be done, and they were going to take a break, and then save it for like the last 2 episodes or the last episode, but no. They said, screw that, we're going to make sure we make these last few episodes as action-packed as possible. I hope they didn't just blow their wad in these 2 episodes. But man, yes. God, I love watching these action scenes. They are so just intense, and they get your blood pumping. You're just like, oh. Like, even when he's setting up, the intensity is building. I'm just waiting for this whole scene to play out. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, are they really about to try to step on Frank Castle in his own building where he's clearly had time to set up? They did. And screw it, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for these agents to go in there. It doesn't make any sense for Russo to send his agents in there because he should know that Frank has got this all figured out. It doesn't matter. It sets up for a fantastic action scene where he's set up all these like MacGyver-like traps. You know, guys are walking under lamps. He shoots the lamps and it bursts something out of them and it causes like a flare. And then he has them all stand in different sections that he's wired to blow and blows them up just knowing that they're going to be there. And then pulls out a freaking 50 cal, I think it was, and just blows them away. So it was awesome. It was, like I said, normally the brutality and that type of thing, not really my cup of tea. I mean, it's not something that I just really, really want to see. I'm not like one of those people that loves to watch brutal stuff. But something about these action scenes just gets me excited. It gets me and just engaged in the story and engaged in what Frank is doing because they make them so unique, you know, to what he's doing. And I don't know, I love how ingenious some of the setups are. You know, that setup in the stairway where he's surrounded by cops and it feels like, oh, he's done, and then he uses the fire hose to get himself out of there. When he's got 3 agents shooting at him and he uses a dead guy as a body, like a shield. I mean, that's the type of stuff that only Frank Castle would think to do. And I love watching these scenes. It's so exciting. It gets me pumped. It gets me invested in what's going on. Whew. So anyway, with that being said, obviously that was the big highlight of this episode for me. We do see Micro's family gets taken. Only his wife and son, though. The daughter, she had to take a call, went upstairs, luckily for her, right before the cop walks in. And so when she hears what's going on, she jumps out the window and manages to get away. So Frank and Micro use that to track her down. She gets to see her dad for the first time since they thought he died. And she takes it remarkably well. You know, she is a little hesitant. She does, you know, obviously she's excited to see her dad. And while the kids acting at time for both the daughter and the son can be a little bit kind of cringy. Like when the son's just acting like a total punk. I don't know. Some of it just feels like it doesn't feel quite right. It feels more like he's reading lines in an angry voice rather than he's acting like a punk kid. It sounds like an adult wrote most of his lines and probably did. So I don't know. Their acting has been kind of hit and miss, and with the daughter, she's not one that I really noticed. But for this one, I really felt like she did convey the emotion of the excitement of seeing her dad, the sadness of remembering what she had to go through, the anger of the fact that they both lied to her about what happened, and it just felt like it was all correct. It felt like she did what she was supposed to do, and so I gotta give props to kids whenever they can really convey emotions well. I mean, I don't know. As a fellow actor, respect. You did a good job. But yeah, so we're finally getting sort of the setup for the end of the season. The last two episodes are just around the corner. And you can really sort of see where it's going. Russo is very clearly hesitant to do anything. Rollins is trying to, I guess, force his hand. We see Rollins' connections in the CIA. He's using them to track down Frank and where he is and trying to wipe him out. And then on top of that, at the end, which I thought was kind of a little bit out of nowhere, but it sort of feels correct, because we do see Madani and her boss, which her boss is actually turning out to be a good guy, which I'm glad. I'm glad he's not corrupt as well. I was worried they were going to pull that crap, He's like talking to her, look, I'm going to go ruffle some cages. Then we see him talking to Rollins like, Madani's onto you or something like that. But no, we do see them talking to this Marion woman, though, who I think she's the head of the CIA. I'm not entirely sure. But we do see them talking to her after she was just got done talking to Rollins. And when they tell her what happened, she actually goes to Rollins and says, look, I mean, I knew about your operation, but we're killing American soldiers on our turf now? Like, that's not a part of the operation. That's not what we do with the agency, whatever the agency is. I don't know if she's talking about the CIA or some other agency that they've got within the government. But clearly she's not for what Rollins is doing. So she tells him, pin all of this on Russo, get rid of him, burn him, and then you're out. And I kind of find that a little surprising, just because it seemed like she was going to be working with him and she was going to be, have his back. We got to deal with this. We got to deal with Madani and, whatever his name is, Raji, something like that. I think the head of the Homeland Security. I thought for sure she was going to pull that, but she's like, no, you're done. You disgust me. We do not do that here in the agency. I don't know. I find that kind of interesting. Now I'm really curious to see what this agency is. And I kind of feel like maybe the reason why she got rid of him was to keep the Punisher series going, because now that they've gotten rid of Rollins, they're going to find out about this whole agency behind the scenes, because he's not a part of them anymore. He'll probably say, oh, I'm just part of a bigger picture or something along those lines. And then it's going to set up for season 2, and Punisher's going to realize, oh, I've got more people I got to go take out now. But I don't know. I did like the scene, though. I feel like it shows that the people that Rollins is working for aren't just some crazy, corrupt people. They do have a sense of justice as well. It may still be messed up. It may still be, they're doing their own thing and they're doing things that are illegal, but at least they're not the type of people who are like, oh, you're killing people in other facets of the government on our soil? Oh, no problem. We got your back. No, they do have a code, which is good. It also makes for a more interesting, I guess, villain in this case as well. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much most of this episode. There's a lot of fluff stuff going on, but that's pretty much what happens. Frank taking down the people. He sees that Sarah and I forget the son's name. He sees that they get taken, and that's when he sort of realizes everything going on. So he sets up the plan. He and Russo have a nice little back and forth, which shows that Russo is pretty much, he's pretty far gone. And I kind of wondered if we were ever going to get a moment like this where they did get to talk it out before they had the final showdown. So I'm glad we did get that moment before then, because I don't know, sometimes it feels like, especially when I watch like the DC CW shows, it feels like we don't really get to see the hero and villain if they know each other. We don't ever get to see them talking before the battle. It's always during the battle, and it kind of distracts a little bit. So I'm glad we got this moment where they're talking over the phone before we have the final showdown between the two of them. And even Frank's like, look, at some point it's going to come down to just you and me. And Russo's like, no, it won't. I have too many people for that. So clearly he thinks he's just not going to get involved because you could tell he's kind of scared of taking Frank on one-on-one because he knows it's going to be too much for him to handle. So he's going to try something underhanded, I'm sure. He's going to try to find some way to get around it and maybe take Frank out cheaply. So I don't know. I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out, how it's going to go down, who's going to be left standing at the end. Because I am concerned there are going to be a couple people. I'm worried, Micro might not make it, which would suck because his family is just getting him back, and then, and now he's actually dead. That's awful. Madani, I feel like she's probably going to make it. I hope, because she has turned into a pretty awesome character over the past couple episodes, even though at first I was pissed off at her. Obviously, I feel like Rollins has to die by the end of the season now. It's really setting it up that he is going to die, because he's just becoming... It feels like he's probably going to go rogue now that he's getting kicked out of the agency. I feel like he's just going to lose his mind and do something crazy and probably kill a few people in the process, and then get killed in the process as well. Russo, I also feel like, is probably going to die, or maybe going to possibly sacrifice himself. Maybe the camaraderie between him and Frank will show through in the end. Maybe. I don't know. That's the one thing that I'm not sure about, is what's going to happen with Russo. And it's probably the only thing I haven't been able to predict this entire season, is how his story is going to end. Whether he's going to stay on as kind of a main villain, or if he's going to get taken out because he's evil. But whatever the case, very exciting 3 episodes, only 2 left to go. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to finishing this season off. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these 3 episodes? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for the Punisher reviews, and I'll see you guys the final 2 episodes. Peace out.